Welcome. Good evening, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am.
So let's begin with today's EduTalk, and we are having our gorgeous and most dynamic Anjali ma'am as our guest today. So all the audience must be very happy because every time they watch you and you interview people very nicely. Now it's time for you to become a guest, and I got this opportunity to take your interview. So how you are feeling?
Oh
Some
my,
different feeling?
thank you so much, Neeta. What a pleasure to be interviewed by you. It's such a lovely feeling. A good friend, and I'm so comfortable. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Even I am very comfortable with you, with a lovely friend and a really appreciable women. Today only, actually, I come to know so many things about you when I was going through your profile. So now let's make your introduction with all our viewers also. So I take this opportunity to introduce today's guest, Anjali Sanghavi. So she's soft skill trainer based out of Pune and runs her own online training academy called Orchid Education. She runs many programs in public speaking, creative writing, storytelling, voice and accent training, and etiquette and grooming. After her marriage and the birth of her son, she decided to launch a business in landscape design way back in 1985. She successfully ran this business for 25 years up until 2010. Great, ma'am. So nice of you. She was president of Rotary Club of Pune, Riverside in 2005 to 6. She undertook many social service projects in Pune during her tenure, such as the creation of Rotary Garden in Korega Park, presenting a C-arm digital X-ray machine to the Sassoon Hospital, and the Pulse Polio program on behalf of her club. So, yeah, wonderful, ma'am. These are so precious work you have done for the society, and
Thank you.
you are here with us. Really, it's an honor. Actually, we are very happy to have with such a guest with us. Again,
Thank you.
she went on to become a corporate trainer. Okay, this was not the full stop. Again, she started her new journey and she became a corporate trainer, conducting trainings in renowned companies such as Commu India Limited, amongst others. Teaching speech and drama and spoken English before the lockdown in schools made her want to pursue a career in teaching. In the pandemic, Orchid's education was born, and today Anjali uses storytelling in education. So today she is going to talk to us about storytelling in academia. So wonderful. Once upon a time. So now we are starting the story with let's understand how she has started her journey, like what kind of a life actually she lived and what were her experiences. So I guess today we will have a lot of understanding about her success journey, her struggle, and everything. So let's move on to Anjali ma'am. Anjali ma'am, once again, welcome to you on our show EduTalks with II3.
Neeta, ma'am, what a fabulous introduction. I can hardly recognize myself. Thank you so much. Really.
It's my pleasure.
Lovely.
Thank you. So let's move on to our first question. So, Anjali ma'am, please could you tell us a little about your landscape design work, which you did for 25 years?
Yes, my mother-in-law, she was a great gardener. And at that time, we lived in Pune in a house which had a very big garden. So she used to maintain that garden, and I used to spend my time with her. So she taught me everything. And she was so talented that her garden started getting prizes in contests. One of her friends told her, "Why don't you enter?" And so, because she was so good and a very simple person, I just felt that with elderly people, we learn so much. The way they think, the way they operate, and their support. Support is, an all-time great motivator. So I learned from her everything about gardening. There's so many details in it. And she got me my first contract with Gits Food Products. We had to develop their garden, and it started from there. And all along, she was supporting me. So she was actually a national level bridge player. She wrote books on cooking. She won trophies for her garden. So she was a unique human being, very, very simple. And that's the way it started. Then, of course, we went on to doing lots of, we did farmhouses, residence gardens, hotel fountains, and then the whole team grew. There was a civil contractor, there was a designer, and an architect also joined. It grew and grew and grew. After 25 years, I thought that I'd done quite a bit. It's time to do something else now. And it was beautiful while it happened.
Wow, wonderful. So inspiring. Even you have learned, and from your story, actually, we got to understand so many things. And really, it's a kind of work wherein you, being a lady, actually, you have worked with so many people. Like these kind of some civil work is also involved within that. Understanding landscape is not a simple thing. And have you done some kind of education within that, or whatever you have learned from your experience based on that only you have done it?
Yeah, that's right. In the beginning, I had just picked it up from my mother-in-law, but somewhere 10 years into the business, then they started a degree in landscape designing in New Delhi. But by that time, yeah, there's so lots of new people came into the field and there was healthy competition. We met beautiful people and we collaborated also. But when I started, there was no degree at that time, 1985.
Okay.
So it was
It's
like,
very unique and creative है ना, very innovative kind of thing. Means हम तो हमारा garden ऐसे ही सजा लेते हैं but landscape designing and all, really it's unique concept, and nowadays it's actually very popular. All hotels and everything, actually they need to design their landscape
yes, yes,
actually.
yes.
And
Many things involved, like drip irrigation. One has to learn, pick up, you learn the ropes as you go along, or you hire or ask experts to help.
right.
So, hobby became a profession became a passion, and that's how I went along.
Wonderful, wonderful. So first stage has now we have understood ki how you have actually inspired with your mother-in-law and how you started this journey, how you learned and everything. Now let us know about your second very big step, that is you worked as president with Rotary Club. So how was your experience with them, and how all things goes and all?
Yeah, yeah, Neeta, at the time when I joined this Rotary Club, we were only three lady members, and there were 50 members, and the others were all boys, all men. And then, so someone in the club, everybody takes their turn in becoming a president, and then they train you. So somebody asked me that, aren't you worried that all of them are all men? And I said, no, they're so nice, they're so supportive.
Right.
They do so much. Whoever's the president, they do everything to help. So because there was so much of synergy, the people were dynamic. They themselves were handling a lot of work, a lot of projects for Rotary, and they were pleasantly surprised that a lady took up the presidentship. So it was such a nice way to interact and work with people. And we don't think of people as ladies and men, but we think of them as individuals. So in the Rotary, it was a beautiful experience, Neeta.
Oh, wonderful. So nice to know that between this main dominant, or you may say among so many men, actually, very few ladies were there, and still, actually, you have grown and you have received the post of president. Oh, it's not simple, huh? Being a lady, if someone is giving you the post of president, means really you might have proved yourself and you might have really done a lot of work. So that's why they might have chosen you as president. So wonderful. Nice to know your journey with Rotary also. Now let's move on to our third question. So how did you take up education? And please share with us little about teaching children and getting them ready for international exam also.
Yeah, that's right. So, Neeta, before the pandemic hit us, right in the beginning of 2020, before that, for 3 years, I was working with a lady called Maruk Barucha, and she runs an educational organization called Expressions Unlimited. Now, she is the India head for an organization called Lambda, which is based in London. It's the London Association of Music and Dramatic Arts. So she used to get teachers and send us to schools. And as an extra activity, in addition to their curriculum, we used to go and teach speech and drama for 1 year and then give them a portion and they had to get ready. and then the examiner used to come from London. So it was an international exam, the same kind of exam all over the world. So we were trained. Supposing there was one sonnet, which is a type of a poem, a dramatic piece, and a story. So not only they had to learn how to throw their voices, pronunciation, intonation, drama, and also they were able to carry themselves well and emote. So all these things were first taught to us. And then fortunately, all our students in Pune, they got distinction and they passed very well. And then some of them go on to London to take part in debating and many other activities. So I was very happy doing that kind of work because we allowed the students to do a lot of drama practice on their own. Like let them come out, let them be creative, let them do the things they want to do it their way. And the children were so sweet, Neeta. They were so enthusiastic and they did such a good job. So of course we had to train them, but they were brilliant. And since I liked teaching so much for 3 years, when the pandemic hit us, that was the first time I really started using a computer in a serious way. I knew a little bit, but then I learned, and then the Zoom I learned, and then started teaching online. And people knew I was a teacher, so I got a fairly good response. And now I have this academy, Orchid Education. That's how it started.
वाओ वंडरफुल मतलब कितनी तारीफ करूं आपकी देखो ना आपने कहाँ से जर्नी स्टार्ट किया एंड देखो अभी पैंडेमिक आ गया तो आपने कंप्यूटर भी सीख लिया नाउ आपने आपका मतलब इतने कम ड्यूरेशन में आपका एकेडमी भी बना लिया एंड नाउ यू आर रनिंग इट सक्सेसफुली मींस वन आफ्टर अनदर यू आर एक्चुअली adding feathers to your hat so wonderful really hats off to you.
Hasn't it? So nice of you to appreciate. Neeta, I think one has to enjoy what you're doing,
Right, correct.
isn't it? If it gives you some satisfaction and it makes you grow as a person, then you don't mind working very hard. So I think it's true of everybody, right?
Right. Wonderful. So, would you like to share some work with our audience?
Oh,
कुछ
yes.
आप दिखाना चाहेंगे आपने जो किया है इनके लिए इंटरनेशनल स्टूडेंट्स के लिए सो मैं नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन पे आती हूँ तो
Yeah.
शेयर अस अ लिटिल अबाउट ऑफ व्हाट डू वी कीप इन माइंड व्हेन यूजिंग स्टोरी टेलिंग इन एकेडमिया.
Yes. So what I've done is now storytelling offline is the best thing because it's a very loving relationship, between the storyteller, the story itself, and ultimately it's about the audience, whether they're students or learners, listeners, participants, whatever we are trying to get into their minds, the concepts with the help of a story, it's about the audience. So offline is the best thing. But when the pandemic came, we had to teach stories online. And so what I've done is I've made use of some tools which are readily available on the internet. And I have made a small presentation to show how we can use them to teach and how to find out if the students have learned. So it's not only for children, it's for everyone at large. A lot of concepts we teach with. Should I share the screen now, Neeta?
Yes, yes, you may.
Right, thank you. All right, so now look at this saying. It's a quotation. Storytelling is the most powerful way of putting ideas into the world today. So it has to be right. We have to get students to understand what we are trying to say, right? Okay, so I'm just going to give little examples of small stories, and then we'll try to see what are the learnings out of it. So about 100 years ago, this story is called The Island of Statues, and it is written by Sudha Murthy. It's about global warming and environmental damage. So I'm going to just narrate the story in a few lines because we are talking about storytelling in academia as a tool for education. So there was a Maharaja, and he had an island nation off the coast of India. There were large deposits of marble, and people used to come from the mainland to learn sculpting. Naturally, there were colosseums, museums, fountains, every manner of statues and sculpture in marble. But there was a kind sculptor who came and told the Maharaja one day that the marble deposits of our island nation are coming to an end. So he said, what do you suggest? So he said, why don't we sit together and think of some other economic activity? But the Maharaja said, see, right now we're doing so well, I cannot think of anything. And all the people who came to learn, they were like the modern day tourists. They used to spend money, go to the eateries, do shopping, enjoy themselves. And so the island nation was very prosperous. Sure enough, the marble deposits got over, and then all the teachers started teaching sculpting on wood, which this kind sculptor didn't like at all, and he had brought it to the notice of the Maharaja. Again, the Maharaja did nothing because he was a little arrogant. And very soon, all the trees of that island nation were cut down, and it became a barren land. There was no rainfall. The coffers of the treasury were empty. People were poor. They left the island nation and went to the mainland to work. And what happened there? After some time, the kind sculptor, he went to the king. He said, I have an idea. I'm going to suggest a huge project, a project which involves you taking some loan and we are going to plant trees. So they brought trees from the mainland, saplings. Tankers of water came in ships to the island nation. They watered the plants for 2 years. Those plants became into trees, the saplings. After 4 to 5 years, the rainfall came back. All the lakes and the waterfalls, the ponds and the rivers, they got filled up again. Agriculture returned. The people who had gone to the mainland, they upskilled themselves, came back and started small scale industries of their own. In this day and age, we call them MSMEs. So what happened was that after a span of 15 years, prosperity came back into that island nation. So the students, when they hear the story, they come to know a lot about global warming, damage, destruction, destitution to Mother Earth. They come to know many, many things. The human nature, the greed. The Maharaja wanted to become richer and richer and richer, and he wanted to rule world politics. And what happens is the energy one gives out, we get the same back. So there are many, many learnings from this kind of a story. So gradually we use some stories and always we allow the students to discuss. They tell us what they have learned. And sometimes they ask you, do you think that he should have done it in a different way? So we make them narrate the stories and then they talk as if the Maharaja is speaking or there's a narrator. No, there is a lot of creativity there. Now this is the story of Red Riding Hood. Universally, when little children, they hear the story of Red Riding Hood, and people, when they narrate stories to their grandchildren, children of 5 years, their hopes, ambitions, fears, they're very basic. But when they hear a story like that, they become 15 years old, instinctively, excuse me, they know who's the big bad wolf. They should never go off the beaten path. Ultimately, good succeeds over evil. So lots of teachings come from narrating stories. Now, these are the techniques which we can use when we teach concepts online with the help of stories. There is a lot involved. Now, each one of these, they are streams of education in themselves, disciplines, right? I didn't want to make it sound too much like a lesson, so I want to go through it very quickly. So we teach students communication skills, how they can use shoulders upwards, emotions, facial expressions, gestures. They can move their head, open their eyes, speak loudly, voice and speech patterns. They can project their voice. And so we can teach them all this online. Now, as we know, we can make videos, use music, different techniques of drama, animations, picture stories. There's one of my friends, she is a wildlife photographer. So she puts her pictures together. Sometimes she changes them from the picture she took earlier and she adds a narration to it and it becomes a picture story. So all sorts of techniques we teach children. Visualization, which is a practice called dharana, which has originated in India. It is called visualization. So what we do is we narrate the story to them, we discuss with them, and then we ask them to make their own story. And how did they do this? How do they share it with the other students in the class? We teach them about characterization. They can use jewelry, weaponry. They can use all sorts of clothes. Maybe they can put a pagri on and so many different material props which a character can use. Now, any storyteller knows that a character carries the story on his shoulder. They are the most important part of a story. We might forget the story, but we will never forget a character. And so long as the children understand that, the storytelling in itself is an art, plus the concepts that they have learned through that story, that is what the teachers want them to know. And we work as friends. We don't work that this is the guru and they have to be disciples. No, we allow them a lot of freedom. Kinesthetics is the use of your muscles with sensory organs. So everything has to be taught. Now, if we teach them something like the clouds said, thunder, thunder, the lightning said, surrender, surrender. But the earth said, I wonder, I wonder. So then they keep adding to that words with similar sounds. They say juicer, grinder, so many things, but they make little poems, which is something that is so beautifully done by children. We underestimate them because we throw a lot of knowledge on them. But they're already a little tired sitting for 6 hours in front of the computer. So, because studies are all online. So we have to make it pretty interesting for them. So synchronous learning is when we use many techniques together. Asynchronous is when we use only one technique. Now, how do we know if the children have learned? We ask them to make quizzes. The story we told them, they use an app called Kahoot, which is for quizzes. As you know, we have the Google Classroom, and then many, many others. Some of these apps, they are still available on the internet. There is an app called Seesaw for children to learn, to, of course, narrate back, get back to the teacher. There's an app called Padlet. Now, TED Talks is not an app, but it is an area where students can learn speech patterns and rate of speech, volume, projection, how to stand, how to connect with the audience, eye contact. Now see, when very famous actors, they are acting in front of the camera. So they are not connecting only with the camera, but through the lens of the camera, they are connecting with the audience. So we teach students that when you make a video and you yourself are narrating the story back, or you made your own story, you try to connect with the audience through the camera. Now, these are the ingredients, is a word we normally use for recipes, but these are the main elements of a story. So children have to know if they are making a story of, say, independence time, what were the beliefs of the people, what did the people wear, how did they treat other people in those days, what was it that motivated a whole country to come together and unitedly work for their own freedom. Every story has some challenges which they work on, they fight it, and in the end, it gets resolved. So there's an outcome. Sometimes there are stories which are left, the ending is left to the imagination of the listener, or it's a flashback. The ending comes in the beginning. So children are very, very creative. They keep all these elements in mind when they are making a story. And what do? They make a video and they send the video to the videography department of the school, which the teacher takes it up and sees how much the child has understood. And stories can be beautiful. They can be personal experiences. Like there was a time when we belonged to Nagpur. So we had gone to find out where our ancestors lived because my brother was very, very keen to do that. So we found out that about 400 to 500 years ago, my father's family, they were financiers to the Bhosla dynasty, which was actually quite surprising for us, but it was documented. And the kings had given them a reward, our father's family, by naming a street after them. It was called Dharaskar Galli. We went there. We found the place. We still have some cousins there, where my father used to live, where my mother had come as a young bride. There was a family temple. A lot of the buildings had collapsed, so they were renovated. But it was an amazing experience that my maiden surname, there still is a street and it's still there today in Nagpur in an area called Itwari. So it's called Dharaskar Galli. And those houses in those days, they used to have paintings of Pehlwans and a lion and what happens to people if they go to hell. So some of the paintings are still there. So these are called personal experiences, family stories which come down to us from generations, generations and generations. We know exactly what our great grandfather used to do as a young man. So people want to hear your own personal story. Now, we don't teach children ghost stories, but they exist. People enjoy them. They want to know, are there really any kind of spirits in the world? So, of course, stories are a source of deep excitement. Fables, 600 BC. Aesop wrote fables, and they are still used as universal teachings for everybody. In the court of Louis XIV, there was a fable writer called Jean de La Fontaine, and he wrote fables, 250 fables, and he also wrote different literary works. In our own country, we had Mullah Nasruddin, who didn't know how to read and write. Of course, the ownership of Mullah Nasruddin, many countries say he belonged to them, so that's also fine. But, excuse me, please. He used to look into a well and he used to see his own reflection. The next day, he used to wear a turban and go, and again, he used to see a man with a turban. So, what he was trying to teach was whatever energy we carry, it's going to come back to us. So, his fables were also really cute, and it had lots and lots of teachings. So, there are fables, there's the myths, all these beautiful Greek mythology, Orpheus and Eurydice, or so many myths which we have in India, where we are very blessed. We have the Panchatantra, the Mahabharata, the Upanishads, Vedas, Ramayana, so many beautiful stories. Then we have legends, the legend of Hanuman. We believe it to be true, but there is no real proof. So that is what a legend is. Sacred stories of our gods, of our beliefs, and then superheroes, Star Wars, all types of stories. Now, people, they would love to hear the stories and the experiences all of you had when you were traveling. So that's what students do. They come back and then they tell us about their experiences. Now, the corporate world has also started using a lot of stories. So we can take, after a few months, another interview for corporate stories, but they are using it to build a lot of bonding for their employees, plus their stakeholders, their advertisers, their legal department, and then people who are part of their, you have a lot of support staff, not just the employees, like you call the watchmen, and that is a service which is hired out. So they use a lot of stories. It's a very beautiful way to get people together. It builds a lot of customer loyalty as well. Now, people have researched and found out that they are, with scientific research, able to say that 70% of the human brain, it absorbs learnings much faster than reading and writing, and many other things. And that is the reason we have started using stories online. And of course, all these things that I have been saying, it has to be shown. Okay, it has to be demonstrated. And that is one reason I wanted to show a small video. So the concepts become a little bit more, you know, uh, sort of streamlined. One can understand them much, much more easier. So with your kind permission,
Yes,
I
yes,
will.
definitely. Definitely. We would like to enjoy that video too.
Thank you so much, Neeta ma'am. Okay. Just all right. It's about 5 minutes. Is it all right if I keep it running on, Neeta?
Yes, yes, definitely.
Thank
Maximize. Maximize.
Storytelling is the most powerful way of getting ideas into the world today. These are the famous words of a person called Robert Mackey. Hi, good evening. I'm Anjali Sanghavi, and I'm going to share some very personal perspectives on storytelling. Storytelling is a very lovable relationship between the storyteller, the story, and the audience. It is a dynamic medium. It is alive. It has orality and it has ethnography. Orality means that we have to vocalize the story, and ethnography means that it is from all cultures of the world. Storytelling has been found that the listeners and the learners, they have terrific retention power, 55% more than when we learn from writing on the board. So the learners, they absorb, they synthesize, they analyze, and they fix it in their psyches, the concepts that they're supposed to grab. Now there's several genres of stories. We have all grown up on the masala stories of Bollywood. When we remember a story called Mughal Azam, there was Emperor Akbar, and he was screaming at his son, and he says, Salim, tum anarkali se shadi nahi karoge. And we love that moment. And then we have the legend of Hanuman, his dedication, his devotion to his Lord Ram. And these are the heroes of history. We have Maharani Padmavati from Chittor and how Alauddin Khilji fell in love with her. And we had a picturization called Padmavat where Alauddin Khilji is dancing and he says, Kali bali ho gaya hai dil. And so on. We have a treasure trove of stories from India. We have the Mahabharata, the Panchatantra, the Ramayana, the Veds, and the Upanishads. And in every culture in the world, there are stories which have come to us from times immemorial. We have a genre of stories called fairy tales in which Little Red Riding Hood, there is a moral for children to learn. It says the wolf is real. There are real dangers in the world. We should always listen to our parents. We should never stray off the beaten path. We should not go towards the big bad wolf, and we should know that good triumphs over evil. We have fables. Now, in the court of Louis XIV of France, there was a fable writer, and his name was Jean de La Fontaine. In 1668, he wrote fables. I'm sure all of you will wonder that don't we have fables in India? We are so fond of the stories of Mullah Nasruddin. But the fables of Jean de La Fontaine, they were archetypal, which means that they had universal truths which exist to this day. He used animals as his protagonists, and when we write stories with animals and we give them human forms, those stories are known as anthropomorphism. Wow, isn't that a tongue twister? There is another form, a genre of stories called frame stories. These are called umbrella stories, and they have little stories inside them. So 5,000 years ago in Arabia, there was Princess Sherazade, and she was going to get married to a very wicked sultan, and he was so wicked that he would marry one day, and the next day he would cut off the head of his bride. So what she did, she started telling him stories from the first night. The whole night she would regale him with stories, and the last story in the morning, it ended with a cliffhanger. Cliffhanger means that the story, we are dying to know what's the end. But she would not reveal it. The Sultan had to go for his duties, so he was restless. He would come back the next night and he would listen to another whole night of stories. So for 1001 nights, she narrated stories to her husband and he transformed into a wonderful human being. He did not kill anymore and he became her slave, so to speak. We also have stories which tell us the skill of the storyteller. The storyteller should know how to enact different characters in his story. He should know picturization, political era and time, beliefs of the people in those days, costumes. So he has so many tools to his credit. He can use jewelry, weaponry, costumes, of course. He can use different techniques of storytelling, of teaching, like synchronous learning, asynchronous learning, kinesthetics, visualization. And finally, your own story is a magic story. Everyone has that miracle and the wow moment in your lives when life transforms. Zip, zap, zoom, crackle, sizzle. So when you tell your magic story of your own life, use a magic spell. So fee, fi, fum, fo. I wish I could ride a rainbow. I'll ride a rainbow higher than high. I'll fly like a kite into the sky. So, my friends, say your story with everyone. Tell your tales and enjoy listening, enjoy sharing. Thank you for a very patient listening. So,
Wonderful, wonderful, amazing, just amazing.
it was just a way to show students how one can, you know, use all the techniques on the internet, on the monitor, how you can really make your stories interesting. So I just thought that I'd like to share it with you and with the viewers. But
Today
it's a
we actually come to know many hidden talents from you. There is one small child also inside. One actor is also there. One singer is also there. Just like you were saying, some kind of rhyming words in some poetic format, and just like magician also you enact. So yeah, ड्रामा भी अच्छा कर लेते हैं, एक्टिंग भी अच्छा कर लेते हैं, स्टोरी भी बहुत अच्छा बताते हैं, क्या क्या बिजनेसेस भी किए हैं, ट्रेनर भी है, तो so many things are there. So much of hidden talents come out today, and hopefully whatever work you have shown, even childrens might will like this video, and they will also love to visit your channel very regularly, because of course everyone loves stories, but somehow children get attracted very easily with these kind of
correct.
stories. And even you have mentioned about international exposure, about stories for children in the schools and all. So during you were showing the PPT, and you were telling, so I have got so many ideas. For that we will discuss
Yes,
later
of
on
course.
after this interview. So there are some few good projects for you now, and
Wonderful.
let's see, hope for the best key, how we can actually do it well together along with IAI3 and NTCS and your organization. So let's see what kind of good opportunities, and even our audience, they will also like whatever kind of ideas actually I have got during your presentation and all. So wonderful.
Amazing.
Actually, I love it. I love it so much. Your presentation, your video, just fantastic. इतना कैसे कर लेते हो, ma'am?
Neeta, thank you so much for your appreciation. You know, if a person who's watching can get engaged in it, can get carried through it, then that's the main thing. So
Right.
that's our focus. And it's really, really so nice of you to appreciate me. But I think that you yourself are a huge personality, Neeta. You've done
अरे
so
मैम,
much.
आपके सामने कुछ नहीं है। अभी
But
तो बहुत कुछ करना है, अभी तो बहुत कुछ पाना है। On the
so,
journey.
another thing is that most of us, we should believe that age is just a number, that we
Right,
can do a lot. It doesn't matter.
right.
So, but it's such a pleasure to be here, and I'm so happy there's some projects in the pipeline.
Yes, yes, of course. and also hopefully those people who are watching this interview today, they may also got new ideas. If there are people from academia and schools, they may also find that talent within you, and they will also give you a call. So I wish all the best and good things for you. Hopefully, you get a lot of projects and a lot of work in this new projects also. So wonderful, ma'am. It was amazing experience knowing all about you, and you have inspired us a lot. And really, you are like idol for us. But so many things we could learn from you.
So
And
sweet.
in this age, also, you are so charming. You're so dynamic and always motivated and always ready for everything. Oh, Neeta, मैं कर लूंगी. So nicely you always say.
Oh, so
Whenever
sweet.
it like took up any kind of responsibility, you are always ready. So I really want to appreciate, and I'm really happy to see your enthusiasm. Really, मतलब इतना energy कहाँ से आता है? I don't know. But definitely, we will have a lot of fun together.
Oh,
And I have got
yes.
many ideas regarding this dramatic and storytelling, because this is what is nowadays content is very very important thing. हर
Yeah, yeah,
किसी को
yeah.
content चाहिए आज. ऐसा है कि सोशल मीडिया पे ही लोग लगे हुए हैं सारे. बहुत सारी चीजें तो ऑनलाइन ही हो रही है, तो नाउ कंटेंट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग एंड दैट यू आर ऑलरेडी हैविंग. So what we have to do is we have to just synergize in a proper way, and
Yes,
we have to
yes.
organize it in such a way that we could actually channelize it, and that content should reach to right people. So
Right.
that we have to do. So definitely we'll have a meeting very soon, in-person meeting very soon,
Yes, yes.
and let's have some further planning about it. So thank you very
Certainly.
much. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for
Thank
asking me
you.
to come on your show. It was such fun to be together, Neeta. And for our viewers, thank you so much. Thank you, Neeta. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So next week we will have another guest with us, and of course we'll have regular talk on the same day and same time. So thank you, viewers. Thank you very much.
Neeta, next week we are going to have the daughter of legendary actor Ashok Kumar.
Oh,
And she was married to Devant Verma, who was also an actor. And her uncle was Kishore Kumar. So she is going to talk about, her name is Rupa Verma. She's going to talk about this artistic legacy that she has inherited. So I think it should be quite an interesting talk next Friday.
my God! आप तो मतलब actors को, singers को, celebrities को लेके आ रहे हैं. Wonderful, amazing,
Uh,
amazing.
simple people like all of us.
Okay.
So it's just, there's so many professions. One can become an actor if you have the talent for it, or a singer, or a comedian. So we'll talk about that next week. But meanwhile, today was such an enlightening, rewarding experience for me. Neeta, you're so full of energy, so full of love, so full of passion. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Chalo then, we'll conclude today's session
Sure,
now.
thank you.
Chalo, bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye, Neeta. Bye, dear.